Karolina Rzadkowolska. I'm so excited to have you here today on the We Rise podcast. Thanks so much for taking time to join me. Karolina is an alcohol-free life coach and an amazing leader in the space of helping folks become alcohol-free. I met Karolina in early 2020 as I decided to become alcohol-free, took a wonderful class with her, and just really opened my eyes to the space of learning of the beauty of the alcohol-free world and life. So I'm really excited to have you on that podcast today, Karolina. Can you introduce yourself so folks know who I have the joy to speak with today?
Oh, Christine, I'm just so excited to be here today. Such a warm welcome that you shared. And I just love this topic because it's kind of taboo. Like we talk about alcohol maybe when we're planning a trip with our girlfriends or happy hour. And then we talk about alcohol in the very extreme sense, like someone's hit rock bottom and it's recovery and AA and alcoholism. And we do not talk about alcohol anywhere in the middle in our mainstream society, which I really think does a huge disservice to us because if you think about it, most of us start drinking when we're teenagers, maybe in college, and then it becomes this unconscious habit that we don't really look at in our lives that might not be serving us. So I give a space of curiosity, of openness, of empowerment to explore other ways of living and really find that there's a whole world out there of people who are saying, like, we don't need to numb or we don't need to, take the edge off or drink to be confident or whatever it is, that are finding that kind of freedom within.
Yeah, absolutely. What a beautiful phrase for the freedom within. So can you talk a little bit more about your own story, Karolina, and how you got here? I think the framing that you brought up is so key around we have a conditioning around alcohol just being normal. Yet we also talk, especially in the personal growth and development space, about the power of habit. Yet those two things aren't often matched up around the power of habit and alcohol and what that does to our own bodies. What has that journey looked like for you, Karolina, in terms of recognizing that habit, your own growth, and getting to where you are now?
Absolutely. Such a good question. So my relationship with alcohol really confused me, So I think that we are really, again, we're all conditioned to drink. Most of us pick it up in Western society. And yet, like, we only have a few role models or stories about what it looks like to navigate that. And a lot of times it looks like, oh, you drink way too much, you hit some kind of rock bottom, you have to go to rehab, you have to do all these things. And then, you're a non-drinker for the rest of your life. And I remember just like not being able to fit in that box. I was like, that's not my story. And so, when I was in college, when I was in grad school, I drank way too much, partied way too hard, but I really toned it back as I got older. By the time I was 30 years old, I considered myself a very healthy and mindful person. So I was interested in the personal growth space. I was interested in being health conscious. I remember it was like Monday through Thursday, I lived this healthy lifestyle. I, did my yoga, I meditated, I drank my green juice. And then every single weekend, like clockwork, alcohol came in, whether it was sushi night, dinner party, game night, wedding, whatever, Netflix and wine. And I would just wake up every Monday morning feeling so adrift. I was physically unwell, but I also felt very mentally unwell. Like, oh, I was trying to make all this progress in my life. And now I just went 5 steps backwards. Like, and I was doing this every single week. And at the same time, I was looking around and literally that's what everyone else was doing, So I was like, this is just what you do. This is adulting. This is balance, right? And it was so confusing for so long. But I finally reached a point where I just got sick of it. I was like, what if I didn't have this like endless merry-go-round controlling my life? What if I like took the brakes off and actually had this upward spiral instead? And so basically what happened is I heard of dry January. And that was like my big aha moment. I was like, okay, I can take a break from alcohol, like I finally have this excuse and I don't have to explain it to people. I don't have to put, a problem behind it or a reason. I can just say I'm doing dry January. And it felt like I finally had permission, honestly, to look into this. And it was this permission that I felt I didn't have for a long time. And so I did dry January. And like, while there were some challenging moments, some new ways I had to learn how to like sit down at a restaurant and not automatically order a drink, I actually really loved it. Like I was just felt wholesome. I felt so much healthier. My energy levels were going up. My sleep was improving. And I found myself exploring like what fun means to me in new different ways. Fun used to be a Friday night with a Netflix and wine. Now I had to kind of really rethink that, really get kind of more exploratory and creative. And so the end of January comes and I'm still convinced that in this world, if you want to be a normal adult, you have to drink. So I go back to drinking in February and the contrast is just so heavy Like I hate it, literally. I can't sleep very well. Even a few drinks, like I notice my mood goes down. I get cranky. I get impatient. I even start picking little fights with my husband. And I'm like, this sucks. This is not what I thought it was. And so I decided to take another break at that point. And that break turned into 4 years later. And I am just every single month, every single year has just gotten better and better and better. And I became obsessed with that better. I became obsessed with sharing, like, oh my God, these are the incredible benefits you'll receive. This is how you'll grow yourself personally, because it is a huge personal growth experiment. This is how you'll get out of your comfort zone. This is how you'll like build your confidence. And I launched a company. I became a coach. I eventually left my day job. I wrote a book. And all of this not only is because I'm so passionate about this message, it's also through my own transformation that I really heard that call. And I was like, I was looking for more for so long. And yet I didn't know what that was. And I felt so stuck in life. And I finally believed in myself and my capabilities enough, because if I could master my relationship with alcohol, it was like this freeing idea of like, well, what else could I do? You know? So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
I love that. I love that. And what a great story and transition to where you are now. You talked a little bit about believing in yourself and that moment of belief. Karolina, what allowed you to believe in yourself? What was that transition point where you said, this is something I want to create. It's something I want to consciously cultivate and do. What allowed you to do that? What was that belief in yourself? And how did you sustain it?
Yeah. And I think it's good to like address what it wasn't before, because, even though I wasn't, getting drunk every single night, or I wasn't hiding vodka in my closet, all those kind of stereotypical stories we hear, I felt like I always let myself down. I had so many rules around drinking. I tried to limit it. I tried to keep it really balanced. I'd be like, no drinking tonight. You have a presentation tomorrow morning, but then my friends would invite me out for sushi. Or, I would only say, okay, just one drink, just 2 drinks, whatever it was. And I 8 times out of 10 would let myself down, and I would break a rule, and I would wake up the next day not feeling great and really feeling like I couldn't trust myself. I didn't work out, I didn't like do the healthy meal, probably. Like it was this snowball effect that wasn't just the alcohol. It kind of disrupted every healthy habit that I had. And so I just felt this lack of trust for myself. I couldn't abide by my word, not when alcohol was in the picture. And that really crumbled my self-esteem over time and my sense of self-worth. And so one of the fundamental things that happened when I took a break, and I was just like, I started thinking of it kind of like a toxic ex-boyfriend. Like sometimes an ex-boyfriend might make you kind of weak in the knees and you don't have really good boundaries around them. And if they come around, you can't say no. But why not let them in the house, just say like, you're not coming here anymore. And that's kind of what my break from alcohol felt like. It was this really firm boundary. Like, no, I'm just not doing that. It's not for forever necessarily. I didn't think of it that way, but just for right now, I'm not drinking. And so it felt really empowering. It was like that song, like I Will Survive, by Aretha Franklin, like you're not allowed here anymore. You're not coming here anymore. And each day that I built upon the next, like I remember reaching, my 3rd weekend without a drink. And then I got to 30 days, 50 days, 60 days. I was like, who the hell is this woman? Like not only had I never done anything like that, nobody around me has ever done anything like that. So I felt really, really empowered. It was this confidence brewing inside of me. Like, this has been my Achilles heel for so long. And if I can do this, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And so that confidence really started spilling over into other areas of my life. And it really helped me topple a lot of self-limiting beliefs because, for example, like I always wanted to be an author and I wanted to, not work for a boss. I didn't like the whole corporate 9-to-5 situation. I wanted to have this freedom lifestyle based on impact and travel. And yet in my mind before, an entrepreneur was this tech genius, this white guy who lived in the Silicon Valley. That was my idea of an entrepreneur before. And I was just like, not this shy foreign girl, not me. Right. And so for a long time, I just didn't really believe that it was even possible, even though I had the feelings that that was my true desire. And so when I went, took my break from alcohol, I was like, well, why not me? Why not me? And I started just kind of pushing my limits of like, okay, maybe I'll look into it. Maybe I'll see what it takes to just register and then put something together and get certified, all this stuff. And it was also this, conflicts of things, the confidence, yes, but it was also this deeper clarity and connection with my intuition because she was speaking to me for years, but I wasn't listening. And so when I removed the alcohol first, that was the first thing I did to really listen to her. And she started giving me more messages and more. And these insights, it almost felt like from somewhere else, from something else, just telling me, Karolina, you're meant to write a book. Karolina, you're meant to do this with your life. And it was just so powerful. And I was like, I've never felt that creative spirit before so strongly. I used to feel it when I was younger, before alcohol came into my life. And it was like back in full force. So, it was a confluence of so many different things, but really, that pride I was getting, that was really knocking down all those self-limiting stories I had previously believed.
I love that. So it sounds like a sense of trust, and trust in yourself was really core. And that trust built on trust and built on trust. And you talked about learning to listen to your intuition a little bit. So I definitely want to come back to your book, because I'm so excited about this opportunity for you. And also just coming out of the last 19 months of a global pandemic, where I know the, rates of alcohol use have spiked so much in ways in which people have numbed out trying to cope. So I think it's so relevant for where we are. But I want to come back first to what that process of trust looked like, and also your intuition. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like for you? How did you know what your intuition was saying? And how has that helped guide you to create this life that you have walked into and created intentionally?
That's such a good question. And, it's so interesting because like when you look at a human and our thoughts, like we've got lots of different ones going on back there, right? And there's a lot of negative thoughts. There's a lot of the inner critic. There's a lot of imposter syndrome. And yet there is this voice sometimes, this wiser voice, this more inspired voice that's really guiding us, sometimes in really coincidental or almost synchronistic ways to the next step in our lives. And, I remember feeling that feeling when I was younger, and I actually thought I was meant for great things when I was younger. I was like, I'm going to be an author. Maybe I'll win the Nobel Prize. Like I really had this huge view of myself and my life when I was younger. And it was really when I became an adult, and also that alcohol started to become like a normal habit in my life, that I kind of gave up on it all. It was like these goals, these dreams, these grandiose dreams I had, like that's crazy. And I also was like, that's for another lifetime, like that's just not going to happen to me. And I really started believing like, I'm just going to get what I can get, like whatever job I can get, whatever things happen, circumstances, it's just like, I'll get what I can get. I really kind of lost that faith in the universe. But that voice was telling me, every Monday morning I woke up not feeling my best, like, Karolina, you are made for more. You are made for more. You are made for more. And it was so hard to listen to that voice, because it meant like, I'm going to have to face doing something different than everyone else around me. I'm going to have to really go deep and within and really start understanding myself and who I am and what I want. So I pushed it away for a long time. But when I really listened to it, and I took my break from alcohol, and then, I kept going, because there's a point too where you're like, okay, it's been a month. Should I go back? It's been 60 days. Should I go back? It's been 100 days. Should I go back? The voice kept telling me to keep going. It was like, Karolina, you know exactly what you're capable of as a drinker. You know how you feel, the inside of it, everything about that. You don't know what you're capable of without this toxin in your life. Keep pushing those limits, keep seeing what you're capable of. And so I listened, and, then I remember getting these messages, like, and there were like divine messages. It felt like, I remember being in Hawaii. I think it was 2.5 months alcohol free. And this word, euphoric, I had never heard it before. I had not used it in my daily life. It just like came to me and was like, this is the name, this is the describing the phenomenon of how you feel without alcohol in your life. And so, I started getting these ideas of writing a book. And I remember sitting down once on my computer, and my entire book and my entire website and like just ethos just came pouring out of me. And like, if that isn't something, connected to that deeper intuition, I don't know what it is. And so now, like I'll really craft moments of silence and solitude, and especially being out in nature, where I can continue to hear that voice about what's the next right step for me and what's the next right step. And it's just so beautiful, because it's like this feeling of like, I'm never alone. Like I'm always being guided and supported if I'm willing to listen, and it can be so helpful, just navigating the world with that feeling of pure guidance.
Yes, I love that so much. And it resonates so strongly. We, like many people, 2021 has been a doozy on many levels. And I took some time, a week in mid-October, to be by myself on Cape Cod by the water, in a place that I've been going for a long time. And I had a very strong sensation of needing to quiet myself to be able to hear my heart speak. And that, the phrase that kept coming back to me is that my heart has so much to say. I just need to quiet enough to listen. And I have had for many years a very strong meditation practice, but it was that sustained time alone in nature repeatedly and just listening, quieting, tuning in and listening. And my heart had so much to say. And I just felt so much gratitude. And to some degree, a little bit of a surprise that there was so much that my heart wanted to say. And it took that sustained sensation of quiet to be able to hear. So I love that. I love what you're sharing. It's awesome. So Karolina, I'd like to look a little bit more at how community, how you think about communities supporting each other, the type of support that you help build for people who are becoming alcohol-free, and how can you maybe weave in the theme of resilience? How does becoming alcohol-free help individuals or communities become more resilient in different ways? It's hard to relate it to the individual versus community scale on one way, but the alcohol-free community is remarkable and so supportive in different ways.
That's such a good question, and I love the ethos of community. And I was really thinking about this because, in many ways, like I don't work in this localized, geographic specific community. It really is this empowerment of women kind of rising up all over the nation, all over the globe, really, to say like, this isn't serving us, and I do work with some men, but I think it's something fascinating that happens with women in our society and our roles and how alcohol comes to play into that. And, we just look at it from a sociological lens, women used to not be the main drinkers in our world. And like in the 90s and 80s, there was huge marketing campaigns that kind of came in from the marketing arm of the alcohol industry to be like, you can be a man, you can drink like a man. And the rise of women drinking in the last 30 years has been just phenomenal. It is insane how much those levels have gone up. And there's been a huge marketing story around it for a long time now, of rosé, wine, after work, and mommy juice, and craft breweries are on every corner now, and there's this food and wine culture. There's just so much. And the thing is, doctors have seen a huge spike of now issues coming from women because they're drinking more than they ever have before. And the thing is alcohol affects us pretty acutely, And so the thing is that I'm so interested in is that when we are numbing or we are using alcohol to kind of deal with stress or deal with hard things in our life, what ends up happening is it's just this little band-aid. It's just this little band-aid that lasts literally one night. The next night, the stress will be back. It'll be compounded, right? Because you don't have the stamina to face it because you don't feel your best. And it allows you to almost ignore that problem or that stress or that issue. And I think when women do this over and over and over, and it's not anyone's fault, literally we were conditioned to do this. We were told to do this. This is how the world works. What ends up happening is we're robbing ourselves of the power to make the changes in our lives where we want to and where we need to, you know what I mean? And it almost reminds me, this sounds kind of crazy, but back in the 50s and 60s, there was this, huge discontent that housewives used to feel, right? They wanted to do more with their lives other than just bake cupcakes and raise children. And there obviously back then, whoever's choice that is now today, they weren't allowed to, right? That was it for them. And so there was this huge culture of prescribing barbiturates for women by doctors to kind of ease them and, be stop dreaming so much, just be okay. And in a way, I feel it was quieting their voice. It was this huge movement to quiet your inner desires and needs. Only parallels today to how alcohol is kind of brought onto our society in the same way. We could literally be dissatisfied with a certain aspect of our life and drink over it, every night or every weekend, and nothing will change. And if you think about it, there's some really unequal situations we have around this world, and when it comes to women, we get paid less. We also work more for unpaid hours. Women have a much higher distribution of unpaid labor. And so then you come in with the alcohol industry. It's oh, you're stressed out, mom, because you're doing everything. You're balancing all the plates. Here's a glass of wine at the end of the day to calm your nerves or whatever. And to me, it's a joke. It's a farce. It's oh my God, women deserve so much more than that. We deserve true support. We deserve connection. We deserve a society that values our contribution. And, there's almost a very feminist underpinning and almost a patriarchal spin that you could say about the role of alcohol in our lives. And I've met people who've worked in the alcohol industry, like the big alcohol industry, not just like mom and pop shops. And it is insidious, they've said, like their marketing ploys are insidious. It's really similar to what the tobacco industry used to do, and really kind of quiet down any of the studies, or the like really make you confused about whether alcohol is good for you. I mean, we still have that kind of like misconception that red wine's good for you. It's not, right? They're like totally been debunked, but the alcohol industry is like trying to make you confused on purpose and glamorizing it and normalizing it so much. And so, obviously you can buy into that or not, but what I've seen is what happens when women remove it from their lives. When they take a break from alcohol, all of a sudden there is this fierce empowerment. And there's almost a resiliency that happens. Like, stuff is still stressful, sure, but the mountains start becoming more like molehills. It's like, I can handle it. I have the resilience within me to tackle this, to handle it. And also to like kind of rise up and to speak up, right? Like there's this inner confidence that starts brewing. Like I shared with my story, but it's not an anomaly, right? It's very common. This inner confidence and this courage that kind of comes up too. I think when you go alcohol free in a world that's obsessed with rosé, it builds courage. Like when you order a mocktail somewhere, that builds courage. When you tell your friends, when you invite your friend for, a hike instead of happy hour, you are doing the thing that most people won't do. And you're yet like a rebel about it. You're like, I'm not going to conform to societal's norms over my own well-being and my own self-love. And that builds your courage muscle. So I've just seen women really get passionate and discover in that personal growth process what it is they really desire, and it's usually connected to having a bigger impact on the world and really having some kind of legacy where they're contributing back. I've worked with women who have gone on to launch nonprofits or form community groups or write books themselves or businesses that help other women. And it's just so powerful. It's like when we rise and overcome our challenges, we're then able to turn around and help the woman behind us. And it is such a fierce, powerful empowerment and resiliency that happens. And I really do think it's a way that women can take their power back in our modern world. It doesn't solve all the problems, obviously, but it gives us the strength and the clarity to be the leaders we need to be. You know what I mean? I mean, alcohol really robs us of that. It robs us of that passion. It robs us of that clarity, robs us of that confidence. And I think like it's such a beautiful gift to even just explore, like it's not like black and white thinking. It's not abstinence for everyone. But if you've only had one version of yourself, and that's what you've known ever since you're 18 or so, why not just explore who you could be, without this toxin in your life? And it could be really just an experiment to see and to test. And spoiler alert, most people fall in love and they love it and they like stay with it, So it's an interesting question, but I think it's really deeper than just this beverage. It really has so many deeper symbols and ways that we can rise up in our society and kind of take the power back in many ways.
Yeah, I love that. What a great response. So can you talk a little bit more about this vulnerable time at the same time that folks go through when they're becoming alcohol free? So you talked a little bit about the journey of self-love and what that looks like, which is, my own experience and so many people I've talked to, a similar experience, but it is a process. What has created a sense of support for people in feeling supported as they move through this very vulnerable time, those early alcohol-free days, even if there is, there's even in the 2 years almost that I've been alcohol-free, the amount of non-alcoholic offerings has grown so much. And the number of people that I know who are doing it or people I've inspired to become alcohol-free, because for me, it's very much an empowerment-based approach. It's a choice. It's something I want to do. It feels great. But it took a little while to reach this point of just like, yes. And I think euphoric is such a great word. And the reason I was drawn to work with you initially, Karolina, is it felt very much choice-based, empowerment-based. But in those early couple months, it can be hard. So what really creates a sense of support internally for people, as well as at the community scale, to move through, grow self-love, grow trust internally and externally? What factors help contribute to that?
That's such a good question. And I think anyone embarking on a change, like, will feel a lot of those feelings at first. But alcohol adds like a double whammy, because it's not just like you're changing your habit. You're not just like kind of getting out of your comfort zone. There is a physical property of alcohol that was affecting your body for a while. So just on the physical level alone, like when you remove something that's been a habit, that's been, working with all your delicate systems for so long, it kind of takes your body a little time to rebalance. And so some people will find that, sleep gets gorgeous and delicious and so deep and yummy, but it can take a while to get there, right? So maybe your sleep's disrupted a little bit. Maybe your moods are a little disrupted. Alcohol is also technically an anesthetic. Like, it used to be used in surgeries back in the 1800s. So it numbs our emotions. It pushes away the uncomfortable. It really does do that. And there's a lot of things that do that too. The distraction of TV or social media or eating or whatever, but alcohol really chemically does that on a heightened level than some of those other things. And so when you remove it, all of a sudden, sometimes you're dealing with just these raw feelings and emotions, like you're not pushing them down, you're not putting them away. You're feeling them, and you are kind of leaning in at the same time to be like, all right, I want to learn from this. I want to feel all this. I don't want to run away from it. And so it can be kind of interesting to grapple with, like, your body's healing on this massive level. Just 5 weeks off alcohol will reduce your blood cholesterol, your blood pressure, your cancer markers, your liver fat, and then it will grow gray matter in your brain. And all of that, while it's amazing, it, like, you feel it in your body. Your body's literally healing. It could feel sometimes, even depending on someone's drinking habits, like they're more tired a little bit at first. So there is that period of time before it gets really, really good. And it can be vulnerable because, like, you're doing it alone usually, and no one around you is doing it. And it's just this intense phase. But I really like to twist that and be like, imagine if you were to go, like, on a retreat, like a really intense meditation retreat, for example. Sounds really nice, right, in theory. But if anyone's ever done that, like, you don't have your phone, you don't have your computer, you don't have TV, you don't have ice cream, you're eating, like, very healthy, you're meditating all the time, right? It's hard. Like, you have to sit with yourself. You know what I mean? It is not easy. And the same thing can kind of happen when you take that break from alcohol. But if you think of it that way, if you really think of it like, I'm choosing to do this to get to know myself in a new way, it can start to kind of welcome in those emotions. So I highly recommend becoming really good friends with a journal, like getting a journal and expressing all of those new feelings that are coming up, whatever it is for you, and explore different things that you might fear even too, because as long as you fear them in your head, they'll have power over you. But if you put them on paper, you can get some distance from them. So maybe a fear is that, like, you'll never fit in, or you'll be this outcast when you go out, socializing. If you actually write it down, you can start to be like, wait, really? Like, my friends aren't going to like me because I'm not drinking a certain type of beverage. Like, that's kind of crazy, And so journaling can be really key. And so I offer women an actual process to go through, through my course, through my coaching, to be able to know that they're not alone, to be able to have this personal growth framework so that they're developing all of these kind of key phases and transitions and really learning about themselves in the process. And, sometimes someone might not have really great healthy coping we're not taught healthy skills at all whatsoever as a society. Yeah. So just some of the things that we can build and create, like, a foundation, whether it's a great morning routine or something like meditation, or really nurturing yourself and moving your body, or, just other things of ways of feeling your emotion. Maybe it's breath work, maybe it's sound bath healing, all these different kind of modalities that exist out there. We can start to kind of experiment and incorporate them into our lives to find what really works for us. So it's this really beautiful personal growth phase and experimentation phase. And there are gorgeous communities, whether it's through Euphoric AF, through other communities out there where people are doing what you're doing, and there can be a really sense of empowerment in a community. I'll lead a group coaching course a few times a year. And so the women will come together, we'll have, live calls, and the feelings that they get from just knowing that, like, there's all these other women doing this with me, like, we're in it together, we're sisters, we're building this sisterhood. It can be really, really empowering. And that exists almost in any format, whether it's online or in person or through Zoom or whatever out there these days. So I think, like, just remember, this isn't embarrassing. This is probably the most empowering thing you could do. And the other people who are doing it with you are also those, like, I call them supernovas. Honestly, it's the supernova who heard this deeper call from their intuition to try life in a new way. And they were brave enough to listen to that.
I love that. That's so great. Being brave enough to listen to that. Yeah, what a great line. So Karolina, I'd love to hear a little bit more about what's inspiring you, some of the lessons learned, and then we'll turn our attention more to your book a little bit and how folks can learn more about that. So tell us a little bit more about what is exciting you, what's happening in your community, in the alcohol-free sphere that is making you excited these days.
Absolutely. So, for me, it's never really been about the beverage and about, like, helping people just stop drinking. that's like kind of besides the point. And I think there's a lot of, focus on that area out there, obviously. But what I think is really cool, what I think is really beautiful is when you let go of something that doesn't serve you, you create space. And when you create space, you welcome in the thing that you're supposed to do next, the big, beautiful dream, the big, beautiful next chapter for yourself. And that is why I'm passionate. I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. And I think it really ties into, the people who are so invested in personal growth, who are into the spirituality, who are into living a healthy lifestyle, a socio ecological, footprint and environmentalism. It like clicks into place, this sense of like power and purpose when you go alcohol free. And that's what I'm excited about. That's what I really care about. And so it kind of still for me is this oxymoron. Like we have all these spaces out there that are very mainstream, like the yoga space or the wellness space or the personal growth space. And discussions around alcohol like still haven't quite hit that mainstream. You know what I mean? And so that's what really excites me, because there's obviously a huge community of alcohol-free people. There are like bars popping up. There are, like mocktail menus. There's so much changing. I have like a bottle shop in the county where I grew up now, like an alcohol-free bottle shop, right? Those things are I think in 10 years, going to be the norm, but we're going to see that change in our society happen, where like, if you order a mocktail, people aren't going to give you 21 questions about why you're not drinking. Like, I think it starts to not to be this thing that everyone has to do, obviously, but it needs to be an accepted, valid choice, a norm, you know what I mean? And not being tied to some kind of judgment or stigma or association with, oh, this person had a problem. Because even if that's the case, as long as that's the number one reason why people assume you're not drinking, people will stop going, people won't go there. You know what I mean? So we need to change that. So I'm really excited to see the alcohol-free movement go into the mainstream and to really unlock this new of clarity and intuition and creativity there, and have it be such an acceptable choice that like, I think it takes us years to get to the point we were even want to change, because it's just not right now. There's such a social pressure to drink. And so that's really exciting me. Like I'm totally predicting it. Like 10 years, there'll be alcohol-free bars in most American cities, but I really think what really gets to me is literally the individual impact. Like when I hear of a story of what a woman has been able to do in her life, before and after, it's just insane to me, and it doesn't get old ever, because I think what's so beautiful about it is it's a story about human potential. Like if you asked what is the potential of a human being, like what is a human being capable of? Like we've been to the moon, like Einstein invented, the third law of physics. Like there's so much that we're capable of, and I really believe in that raw human potential. And I think that we have all these masks in the way and societal expectations and, limiting beliefs. There's just so much constructs in the way of what we're really, really capable of as humans. And I'm just so interested in like taking those away. Like, how can we become more connected to our souls, to our purposes on this planet, to be really, truly emboldened? And I think that will change the world. Like, I think if everyone's living from that place, eventually we will see so much less of the societal problems that we do have. So it's like this bigger, obviously, thing that can happen, a phenomenon. But that's what really excites me. It's like the power of human potential and, really seeing this like hit the mainstream. Like I can't wait until big people, even Drew Barrymore just came out saying she hasn't drank in like 2.5 years. I mean, like this is just going to become more normal and normal and normal and normal.
I saw that. And just the everydayness. So I love, Karolina, what you talked about, the process of when people are uncovering almost, or that moment of just a seedling emerging from the ground is the image that comes to my mind, but the not having the masks, not having the filters, really growing into what people can manifest in the world and having the self-love, support, and belief that it's possible. So what a beautiful thing just to say. So what key lessons learned, Karolina, would you share with others who are working to become alcohol-free? And I hear you that it's not just becoming alcohol-free. It's really this broader growth space and support and community. What lessons learned would you share with other folks?
Absolutely. So, it's going to be all about really, I think, leaving your comfort zone and jumping into faith. It's this faith, like that intuition we talked about earlier. It's this voice that's like, just take the leap. Just take the leap. Just try it. And these things are terrifying, right? Like I'm scared of still a lot of things in my life, right? Like I'm going to be on TV soon. That's still pretty scary.
I love
But
it.
like every single time I faced that fear, every single time I've gotten out of my comfort zone and I've jumped, the universe has caught me and it has rewarded me gorgeously and beautifully. And so I think that is ultimately this big lesson. Like we're not going to ever escape from fear and never feel it, but it's like there is such a freedom and there's such a sense of like, oh my God, I am capable of so much than I believed when we do those scary things. And when it comes to, alcohol in your life, even just getting out of a regular habit or just, a way that you socialize, for example, like I'm a total introvert. I used to be really shy growing up. So that was like my go-to. Alcohol made me the extroverted person I wanted to be. And even learning how to do that, how to really find that confidence within myself has grown me so, so much. And that's really what it's all about at the end of the day is just, we literally feel unhappy and depressed when we're not growing. We feel stagnant. We feel stuck. It's the story of all those midlife crises. And we grow so much when we're younger. And there is this kind of like plateau we hit, in adulthood. And I think that's where a lot of dissatisfaction and unfulfillment comes from. And so, this is a beautiful way to kind of pick up that growth, to really push yourself outside your comfort zone and then learn more about yourself. Like alcohol tricks us into thinking that it's pleasurable because of the way it kind of manipulates the brain, but it's fake. It's artificial. It's like this, it's dopamine manipulation. What really makes you happy? Like what really gives you pleasure? What really is fun for you? And having even the courage to just explore that, to be like, you know what? I'm not sure, but I'm going to go find out. I'm going to go on this journey and really learn about myself. And I think it's this beautiful journey where you learn what you really want. And once you have that clarity, like, oh my God, you're unstoppable. Right. And I think honestly, as women, we deny ourselves that. And I mean, men too, but like, it's hard to even articulate what we really want. It sounds selfish sometimes, or, like, who am I to desire this, to want this? But I also think that what we want is ultimately tied with helping other people in so many ways. And so it's like, it's not actually selfish. It's the most beautiful expression of yourself. Because when you fulfill all your needs and desires, you're then able to do it for other people. So those are some of the lessons I think I learned from a really macro scale, but it's fascinating how take a beverage, remove it from your life and learn all this stuff.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And it's so woven and connected together. I love that. So Karolina, what do you wish someone had told you 5 or 10 years ago? You've learned so much in your journey. What else would you share you wish you knew early on?
Oh, I mean, like I was always a big reader. I really liked to journal when I was younger, but I think I ultimately was really held back by this fear of leaning in to get to know myself and not liking what I found. So I kept everything surface level. I brushed it all under the rug. I kept doing what everyone else was doing. And it was really that kind of fear. I could have never articulated this back then, but I was
Yeah.
I was scared to go deep. And I think we are sometimes like we're just like there's so much that there's so much dynamism in the inner personality and our behaviors and our motivations, and a lot of people like to keep it surface level, but I wish someone would have just told me that like every great wise answer is going to come from within you, and it's just a matter of getting to know yourself and allowing yourself to trust yourself, and really to trust yourself and what you want over what anyone expects of you, whether it's someone expecting you to drink at this party or someone expecting you to have this like 9-to-5 career, that's really safe, right? Like I've had to push beyond a lot of those different expectations to really find my own passions being met. So yeah, I wish like 5-10 years ago, obviously someone would have told me just don't be scared to lean in to yourself. Don't be scared of the answers that you'll find within. And, I think it's hard as women because we go through a lot of what we go through in life alone. And we think we are the only ones experiencing it, whether it's motherhood or menopause or cancer or drinking or, trying to rise up in your career. It feels like we're all going through it alone sometimes. And that can feel really isolating, and that your thoughts or your problems or your concerns like are yours alone. So I just wish I also knew that too. Like you are not alone. You are totally normal, if not extraordinary. And there's other people out there ready to like rise you with you,
Yeah, I love that. You're not alone. Other people ready to rise with you. That's gorgeous. So Karolina, I'm so excited about your book coming up. Can you tell us more about the book, when it's coming out? It will be out by the time the podcast episode comes out in mid-January 2022. Also tell us how people can learn more about you and your gorgeous work.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You will be on bookshelves by the time this episode airs. It's been my dream to write a book all of my life. I wanted to be an author since I was a little girl. And that was one of the things that kind of got pushed on the someday pile when I really started drinking. And I didn't really think it was going to be possible for me. And so that was one of the coolest transformations I had in my first year going alcohol free, is this, like, you are meant to be an author. And I started taking the baby steps to do it. I started writing in the morning. I started just taking all the steps that are possible to get this book out in the world. And the message, the chapters, all of this came to me almost like in a divine vision. So enough about that. What is the book about? I really just was so falling in love with this alcohol-free lifestyle, with every epiphany I was having, with every connection I could make to something deeper. A lot of times we think removing alcohol will help improve our health, but we can't really see on the outset how it's going to deepen your gratitude, or how it's going to deepen your connections, or just these other deeper, more ethereal things. And so the first two parts of this book really share what those benefits are. They walk you through, here are all the body and health benefits, here are all the mind benefits, here are all the soul benefits, here are the beautiful, juicy developments that are possible for you in an alcohol-free lifestyle. So my hope is that this lifestyle sounds so juicy, so ripe with possibility, that people are like, yes, I can't wait to try it. And so then the last part of the book will walk people through my 8-week framework to, really not only make sense of their relationship with alcohol, lose their desire slowly, but then discover what is my deeper passion, what are my deeper kind of interests from there, and give them that thing. And this book was honestly written, we came up with the word casual drinkers, because so many other books in this space really are talking to the problem drinker. And I think that's beautiful and great. But what happens is that when you don't identify with that, you immediately put a box around it. And you're like, that's not for me, And so I really wanted this book to be like, no, we all have an alcohol story. We all have alcohol in our lives in some respect, right? Isn't it the wisest, most intuitive thing we can do to just lean into that and learn and really make sense of it? And, ask ourselves, is this an unconscious habit I picked up when I was 18? Is this an outdated relationship I picked up when I used to be shy and now I'm like a 35-year-old woman and I don't really need that anymore? Really just make sense of it and, step into the most empowered version of you who doesn't have any attachments to it. Because whether you choose to not ever drink or drink just a few times a year or whatever, if you don't have attachment to it, you are ultimately in control, right? Not the habit, not the subconscious limiting beliefs that are holding you to it. And that's kind of just this beautiful place to start. So you can find it at euphoricbook.com. And when you get the book at euphoricbook.com, I still have some really cool bonuses that are available with the book. So, when it comes to finding another drink you love, I have an ebook of mocktail recipes. I also have a checklist of 50 things to do instead of drinking, because boredom can often be one of our bigger fears too. So just leaning into these new activities, new things to do, and a guide on how to socialize alcohol-free confidently, what to say, how to go about going to a party, all those different things. So you can find all those goodies and get your copy of your book at euphoricbook.com. And if anyone's interested in, working with me or checking out my course or my podcast, anything, all those resources I have, you can find me at euphoricaf.com.
Awesome, Karolina. I'm so excited for the book and for you. And I encourage everybody to get a copy of the book. Karolina is so much fun to work with. And so I think you bring in a sense of authenticity and realness, and also what's possible. You create a space of what's possible for folks. So I think it's going to be great to see where the book goes. And I'm excited for you and all that 2022 brings. And we'll make sure to include all the links in the show notes and on the webpage of the episode. So Karolina, thank you so much for joining today. Is there anything else you want to share with folks before we get ready to wrap up today?
Well, I'm just so thankful for you. You have such a beautiful elocution and wisdom about, this message itself and just the way that you bring other women up. But, my message is just if this piqued your interest, if this just a little bit got you thinking, I think there's something deeper into it for you, and that, learning more, whether it's just reading a book or listening to a podcast, just opening yourself up to questions and curiosity can be just a beautiful unfolding for you. So it's not black and white. It's not about, quitting drinking forever. It's just am I open to really analyze this in my life? And it can just lead to so much beautiful growth and understanding of yourself as well. So that's just my hope for anyone listening. And like I said, the book is out. That will totally help you make sense of it and, form a plan for yourself to try life without it.
Great. Awesome. Tell us the website one more time where folks can find it.
www.euphoricbook.com.
Great. Awesome. Karolina, thanks so much for joining today. So excited to continue to see where things go. And it's just been a joy. So thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.